officer, whatever, Men in Black sort of deal. Don't remember anything, and so they you need to reteach them what they used to know. You may ask,
drivers? Where do I even start? How do I know which drivers to use? Where do I get drivers? Driver, I hardly know her. How many lives in Central Philadelphia? Where's the rocket launcher on this map? Isn't Justin Bieber a CIA spy? What's funny you should ask?
Because Geoffrey and I have all the answers. Oh, this is actually how to do drivers, how to get drivers. Yeah, so to begin, you would have to note the model numbers. And so, anybody familiar with where these things might be? I'm trying to think if there's like a handy computer around. Basically, if you look here, these are IBM net systems. Yeah, so the main model number, you're just going to look around on the model, the PCs when you first get to your lab and see what they are. You're going to have like the make model, the brand is basically just like Dell, IBM, something like that. Model number is basically going to be like a ThinkPad, Inspiron, something like that, Atlassian 900C, some little number. You'll just use these to, and they're going to be located either on the front or maybe on a little sticker on the back. Just look around, you'll see something pretty obviously like a make model number. And just record that. And just a note, you're doing the kind of thing you'd probably do. You'll be in your lab. You'll take these notes about what you have in your what kind of computers there are, and you'll come to Peace Corps, for example, to download this kind of stuff. Because whatever connections you have in your compo or in your Pueblo, it's unlikely you'll find them like this good. You might find a great connection where you can do it and get it done easily. The thing is, it could take 15, 20, 30 minutes of a good connection to actually get all the things you need. So, I shouldn't say it is Peace Corps. That's a convenient way to do it, but you could do it anywhere.
And then the other thing is, for example, HD installers are notorious for having to go to the web even after you've downloaded like a 30 meg file, and then it sits there and downloads, another 30 or 40 megs of whatever. So.
You like that? A little more monster. Oh, right. You need that. It's copper in here. Oh, shit. I'm going to kill this monster. No, you're not to kill. It's only you do. Peace Corps, guys. Peace them up. There's also a large dead spider above the thing.
Thank you.
Pardon me. Sorry, guys. Moving on. So then the reason you're noting this stuff is because you have to go to the manufacturer's website and then just go to a section. Usually on their website there's going to be a tab or a link somewhere that says like download, support, something like that. You just go into that, click on that tab, and then you will enter in, there's going to be something you can talk about like serial number, the make and model number. You just enter it in or you search through it through a list. And then it's going to pop up with a list of all the drivers that you're going to download. So go to the next. The most important ones to get are the audio, which is there's a part inside almost all computers, and I guess for those who know, forgive it for being sort of rudimentary, but there's an audio card somewhere in there, which is what makes all the sound. There's a video card, which is what lets all the data go from the computer up to the monitor, so you can actually see what's going on. Something called a chipset, which is just basically like the internal, like central nervous system of the computer. And then the network drivers, which is another card inside that lets you communicate with the network, so you can go to the internet and things like that. These are like the four most important things that you'll always want to get at a bare minimum at your lab, to just download these types of drivers so that you can take them back and install all these things when you get to your lab.
What, download them all in like one little thing? They're like a pretty little file that has all the stuff that you need for your computer.
It'll be an install file, and they're usually pretty small.
Well, no, in terms of having it all be instead of getting four, just getting one. Well, you get them on their website, on the website of the manufacturer. The problem is that you can't just say, hey, give me all drivers for my computer, and then just download one thing. It just doesn't work that way, which is unfortunate. But part of the problem is that computers at times come, as they develop a new computer, they'll leave the same number on it. For example, they'll produce it over a period of 2 years. The first year they'll make it with, this part, and then they'll switch the part for the next year, but they'll leave the same name on the computer. So at times, it gets a little complicated. But generally speaking, they'll guide you through the process. You just go to the website, and those are the four that you have to get. And I think the next slide just says, or just ask at that case for help on how to get this. Yeah.
Forgive me for being blunt, but
please.
Is this in one of our manuals? Because I feel like I'm going to forget it.
What we'll do, no, and that's not one at all, that's a good question. We'll make sure that you guys have access to a copy of this presentation. If you guys have hard drives, if you have USB sticks, computers, please pass them over, and we'll start making copies of that so you guys have access to this stuff. Obviously, you want to take this with you. So that's pretty general practice in these courses when you do a presentation, so when you give it to the teacher. But yeah, thanks for asking.
And then another thing also is that the FLOTA is one of probably the most useful tool you'll have in your entire service in B-Score. So make use of your cell phone, get everybody's number, people who might have a little bit more technical experience, or myself or Adam. Get our numbers, we'll happily share. And if you have any questions at all, and you just want reference or anything like that, give us a call. And especially, I'm actually going to be extending for the next coming year, basically to serve as a tech support capacity instructor when they go in the office. So I'm happy to be sort of the first guy, first resort if you have any technical questions. So,
your buddy's here now.
It's been a while.
Yeah, with his buddy.
It's not fair, unless they actually smell terrible. Doesn't matter. Anyway, so here's also something too. This also, because your lab might have been used for a while ahead of time, and teachers will have been using it for maybe office work and things like that, go through and ask anybody who was already an encargado or a teacher in your lab if they haven't saved any actual office documents or anything like that on there. Office works, school grades, student files, things like that. Key stuff that's actually important that you'll need to go off and back up. And by the way, when we're talking about saving all these files and things like that, usually we're talking about putting it on an external hard drive or a little flash drive. We lament every single year that they do not update the what you should bring section of your capacity.
Megabyte recommended flash drive.
But yeah, did everybody hear, how many people actually have external hard drives or flash drives with them? So, most people, that's good. Especially for your work.
You can buy them here.
Yeah, you can buy them here.
So, there is that.
I'm actually just wondering what she was. Don't you? So yeah, we're just talking about saving these things so that you can transport them back to your lab. And the same with this, so that you're just going to take off all the documents, all the key stuff that if you erase it, it would actually impact the functioning of your lab or your school in some way. Put it on your hard drive or your flash drive so that after you're done reinstalling the system, you can just put it back on and you'll actually have access to it again. So yeah, a great archive and anything like that is actually important.
So,
If you were redoing the computer to take off a virus, would you not put the virus back on?
That's a good question. And they're actually good.
A good workaround is to boot the computer and install Linux on an external device and then move the files onto the hard drive.
Actually, we have Ubuntu,
and then you can boot it in Windows.
Okay.
So you can boot it, and you don't need
It's remarkably easy. When I give my thing, I'm gonna talk about it.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think with Linux too. We're also going to be. How many of you heard of Iron Tools? It's called software. Iron Suite. Iron Suite. Yeah. Anyway.
Like a rescue.
Don't worry about it. We'll show you how to do it. We've got you stick a CD in, and it's like a different version of Windows that you can boot into, and it makes it easy just so you can use it without having to worry about the viruses getting on your.
And just to chime in also about backing up files, if you get the folder called Documents and Settings, it'll be big, but it'll cover all your bases.
So a lot of times that has viruses. Yeah. But if you're doing it,
yeah. Alright. But anyway, so it's just that just have in your mind, you'll have to go and talk to people about whether they have anything to say. That's like the most.
Do you feel like your question's answered, or do you?
I'm just not really sure how you give them their files back.
So essentially what you'll be doing is, I'll also be doing a virus trial tomorrow,
Okay.
And that'll talk about ways of killing viruses or removing them from computers. So one idea would be you might find a way to you might go through some of these processes and remove viruses, or at least incapacitate them, and then copy the files off. Potentially even safe mode, which is very easy to access, would be one way you could, get stuff off of it. But there are a number of ways that, to get files off of the computer without taking that wire with you.
Okay.
And I mean, this is key too. Like, don't let the lab encargado or the teachers or the president of the directora of your school or anything like that convince you that, like, pirated copies blow them on, or like they're great inside, things like that. Do not let them convince you that their 80 gigabytes worth of potentially pornography is key critical files. Like, this is like stuff that actually is important to running the school. So, and you'll find all this stuff on your school computers. So
you'll all have stories by the time you finish of some kid in your lab that you just didn't believe when you saw it, but there he was. Who knows what?
Fill in the blank with your imagination. So the most common operating system in the DR, an operating system is like the baseline way that you interface with the computer. Like, people may have heard of like Windows versus Linux versus Macintosh, things like that. All of those are talking about different ways in general, which are different ways of just communicating with the computer. It's just a different interface. But the most common interface, the most common way of dealing with a computer is what's called Windows. And so everybody who has, like, pretty much everybody who has a PC here is probably running a copy of Windows. That's what most people are familiar with. Most often, because of the PCs in most of your labs are going to be a little bit older, you're going to be running an older, slightly older copy of Windows called Windows XP. And there's a newer version called Windows 7, which is also available, but you won't see it that often. So just familiarize with yourself.
By the end of 2 years.
Pardon?
By the end of 2 years, as those VR computers die and get replaced.
Well, these guys here are about 10 years old, so I mean, we'll see if they die or they don't. It's likely they'll stick around as long as they get UPS's battery backup, something subtracted from power surges. They'll probably stick around. They'll be okay. I mean, the states are replacing a lot more often, but over here, if they work, and that's one thing that we do a decent job with the state and keeping them working, especially with deep states. In the states, 2 years you can almost guarantee it. Here, I mean, you guys will find out at the end of your service, but I would honestly I would doubt it. Okay. Given how slow things are.
So there are alternatives, and there are definitely some people who are more than happy to talk about these alternatives, such as Linux and things like that. Speak to individuals about these things if you want to. That being said,